Hey guys, Mark Flockhart. Today we're going to talk about the Michigan reform and how the insurance in Michigan is officially changing. This is going to be the most up-to-date information that you can get. If you know anybody in Michigan, this should have millions of views, not because I'm awesome, although I am. It's because everybody in Michigan, everybody has to change their policy. And this is some of the changes, the 5 changes that are major that are coming up in Michigan. The first part is the state minimums are raising. So if you have the state minimum, which is currently $20,000 bodily injury per person, $40,000 per accident, that is going up. It's now going to be $50,000 per person, $100,000 per accident. The rating factors have gotten better. What do I mean by better? I mean the fact that they can't rate for anything anymore. If your bill, you're not paying more. No, that has nothing to do with it. So the things that are changing is they're no longer going to be able to rate for gender, credit score, whether you own a home or not. So home ownership is no longer a rating factor. You will be surprised. If you're new to insurance, you don't get this yet. But if you're a homeowner, you get a big discount for just being a homeowner. That has nothing to do if you insure your house with the same company or not. Just being a homeowner gives you a discount. Having an education is amazing, but it shouldn't give you a discount on your insurance, and it does today. That is going away as well. So let me recap that. Gender, marital status, credit score, home ownership, education, occupation, and zip code. Your location is no longer going to play a factor to a point. They're still going to allow territories. So they're going to group, right now they take your zip code 48081, whatever your zip code is, and that is rated heavily or not. You're either risky or not. A lot of claims or not. Well, now they have to rank it into 488, all the 5, 6, 7, 8 zip codes into one area. Now that area is going to be risky or not, heavily rated or not. It's going to allow, unfortunately, the higher or better areas to kind of pick up the slack for the lower areas. The third piece, which I actually really like this part, is the Mini-Tort. So in Michigan, we have something called a Mini-Tort, which is $1,000. If you get in an accident, let's say you chose standard collision, and it doesn't matter whose fault it is, in an accident, I have to pay my deductible. And if that deductible is $500 or $1,000, that comes out of my pocket even if it's not my fault. Well, if you have the Mini-Tort, you can go after the other insurance, and it's almost instant. You just tell them, I want to file a Mini-Tort, and they will reimburse up to $1,000 back. Well, that's changing. So now it's going to be $3,000. That's pretty cool. If you get in an accident, it's not your fault. Let's just say you didn't have the right coverages, and you had $3,000 worth of some medical expense, and we'll go over the medical in a minute. But let's say you had some sort of, you got to pay a guy to mow the lawn for a week. Something happened, some actual expense that occurred because of that. You can go up to that $3,000 to get that back. The fourth thing, and this is debatable. Some people love this, some people hate this. I get the point of it. So right now, as of January 1st of 2022, having no insurance is not a rating factor. So if you had a lapse, if you don't have insurance, they're not allowed to charge you the $300, $400, $500, $800 more than it costs to start over. So now having that lapse in that small period window, you can't get penalized for that. That is crazy amazing. I don't know. The point of it is mainly right now in Michigan as a whole, there's a section called Detroit. Sorry if you're in Detroit, I'm not trying to put you down, but 40% of all the people in Detroit don't have insurance who are driving. I get it. And the reason being is the price is just ridiculously expensive. If you're a single guy, guys are more expensive usually, that's staying the same because that's correlated, or they can prove that women are better drivers. Sucks for us. Anyways, if you're a guy, you're single, you live in Detroit in the worst zip code, and you're a good person, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But you're going to pay $8,000 a year for insurance. Why the crap would you buy insurance? You might as well get an Uber. But if you have to drive to work and it's a half hour away, you're just going to do it. I get it. I'm not saying it's the right way to go, but I get the reason that it is that way. The problem that brings is if they injure somebody or something happens, they lose all of their livelihood, because if they hurt someone and they have no insurance, they can get sued, especially with this last piece, the fifth and the sixth piece. I'm going to give you an extra piece. That is very important, even more so today that you have insurance, because ultimately the no-fault portion is changing. Now the portion, the 5th and 6th, they're kind of a combo, is called the PIP, Personal Injury Protection. This is something that is completely changing, and this is the part that's going to save everybody money. Everyone should have their policy go down because of this. Before I get into that, let's talk about what this does. Currently today, the personal injury protection in Michigan is unlimited. There's no limit. If you lose your arm and it's $4 million to sew it back on and make you normal, then that's going to be it. If they have to pay a nurse to come into your house 55 hours a week and take care of you and bandage it every hour or something like that, that's covered. That's part of the personal injury protection. It's also the reason and the majority of why Michigan is so expensive. Well, what can I do to get out of that? Well, right now what they do is they allow coordination of medical. So if you have your own medical that covers all of that stuff, you can coordinate that with your auto so you're not paying as high of a price. Does it really affect the price? Not always. Not all companies give you that big of a deal. I could coordinate you with one company, it might save you $100. I can coordinate you with another company and it might save you $600. It's crazy how different each company is doing their different coordination options. So here's what's changing. There's now 5 types of medical that you have options for. There's unlimited. You keep the current PIP that you have. It's the same as you've always had it. That's the way I'm gonna stay with it for now and see how it goes. Now that should show you about a 10% decrease average, 10% decrease in premium of your PIP, not your whole policy. Option 2 is 250 AE. We'll call all of these AE. That's called allowable expenses. That's the nurse and the paying the guy to mow the lawn and all that stuff is included with the PIP. So you can do 500,000 AE, allowable expenses, and that's a pretty decent amount. That's actually more than the state of Michigan offers in general. Okay, so that's above the average claim. But if it happens, you may be the guy that wants that covered. So that's going to roughly save you about 20% on your PIP. The third one is 250,000 allowable expenses through your PIP. That's going to save you about 35% in the cost. It's pretty simple. You're only covered up to 250,000. Now at this level, those 3 pieces, there are no requirements for you to opt into those. So you don't have to prove that you're coordinating your medical or any of that stuff. If you just say, I want 250, I want 500, I want to keep it unlimited, that's a choice they're giving you. That's kind of cool. Thank you, Michigan. But let's see what happens further. So the 4th piece, this is going to be the medical, which is 50,000 allowable expenses. There are requirements to this. You have to have Medicaid that will cover your medical minus the 50,000. So there are some other companies that do offer what they call qualifying health coverage. So they have to qualify for this where they will cover your medical outside of the 50,000 to get this option. Typically what you're gonna see the people that this is gonna be a fit for is people that are either semi-retired that have an amazing medical plan, or people that are retired or on government benefits where they just can't afford it. So if you're getting medical assistance from the government and they do cover car accidents, you have to ask them that. And they say yes, then you're going to opt into this 50,000. How much is that going to save you? About 45%. You're going to see a reduction in the cost of your personal injury protection. And then the last one, which I think is also going to be one of the more common ones, is medical opt-out. It's also going to be called with some companies Medicare opt-out. So you have to be pretty much retired at this point. You have to have Medicare, and it has to be A and B. I'll do another video to go over what those differences are between A and B, but right now, this is the law. You have to have A and B Medicare in order to opt out of the PIP completely. This means you have 0 medical through your car insurance, and that will essentially save you 100% of that cost. Here's a couple things you need to know. This isn't just you. So I personally couldn't walk in the door, even if I had Medicare A and B, and say remove it, because my spouse may not have it. My kids may not have it. It has to have qualifying medical. So everyone in my household has to also have that medical that covers it as well. It can't just be me. It's a household. So the other thing that you have to know is your deductible cannot be more than $6,000. If it does, you don't qualify. you have to choose the 250, the 500, or the unlimited at that point. So if you stuck with me this far, I'm going to give you guys a couple quick pointers. There is 1/6 piece that you have to know about in order to know your medical. One of the big things, and this is going to cause the biggest uproar in Michigan, is the order of priority. Currently today, the order of priority is anybody. If you're on an insurance policy, you're covered. Going forward, there's going to be different limits. So right now, unless you live in the house with somebody and you're on their policy and you're a relative, your order of priority is 0. You have no medical coverage through that insurance company. Let's go a little bit further because this does get a little bit in depth. Order priority is you in the house, a family member that is related to you, that is also living in the house. It can't be Bill from down the street who's my cousin. They're not covered because they don't live with me. They have to be a resident relative in order to be covered under the medical, the PIP. So you not only get to pick your level of PIP, but you also have to make sure who's covered on that plan. Here's where there's a problem. What if you're not married? Boyfriend, girlfriend, you've been together for 6 years. It doesn't matter. They're not a direct relative. Every company that I've seen so far, except for one, does not allow that person to be covered under your medical. So they have to either get some sort of policy outside of that, or they go to the MACP, which stands for the Michigan Assigned Claims Plan. And what that is that's the medical through the state. So what's happening is the state still picks up a portion of it if they don't qualify. If they live in Michigan, they're Michigan residents, they're not covered on an auto plan, then by default, they're going to have up to $250,000 worth of their own medical that's covered through that plan. The problem that we're going to have, and here's where I'm the most worried about. Let's say that we opt out of the medical. I'm 65 years old, I've got Medicaid and Medicare, great, hallelujah, everything's awesome. I get in a car accident, you hit me. You've got unlimited, you're maxed out, you're like, I'm not risking this at all. You hit me, and then for some reason my Medicare and Medicaid don't pick up the bill, or I made a mistake, because a lot of these companies aren't making us prove this. And let's say I opted out of it and I shouldn't have. Now I find out, and it's a legitimate mistake. Let's find out this later. I have 0 medical. It wasn't my fault. Guess what's going to happen? I'm suing you. I'm taking you for everything you've got because my medical's $3 million. My life has drastically changed. And guess what? Yes, the medical was screwed up through me, or I got the wrong advice. Maybe something's happening there. But now I have the ability to go after the person that injured me if it's not enough to cover the situation. Well, what about my deductible? I have a $4,000 deductible, let's say. I fit in the guidelines, but now I'm going to sue you for $4,000 because I want my deductible paid back. Sure, I took that risk, but at the end of the day, it wasn't my fault. I've got a pretty good case. We're going to see a lot more of that, and that's the issue. The scary part is we're going to see more people going to court, more laws, more suing. We're going to see some of the medical companies, maybe they don't coordinate perfectly, or there's going to be an issue, and we're going to see that either raise the rate of medical or something crazy is going to happen there. I'm curious to see. I don't know what it is. It's kind of the unknown is what we're going into. Don't get me wrong. These changes aren't horrible. I'm not saying they're bad. They're just very drastic. I don't think we're ready for them. The other part is the MACP. That medical does not go out of the state of Michigan. So if you're a great driver, you've got amazing coverage, you choose like me, I've got the unlimited, my niece decides to go with me on a trip with my family, we go to Disney World. We get to Florida, we have an accident, we're injured, I get my medical covered because I've got that. She's not on a policy where she doesn't have anything. She cannot go to the MACP because she's no longer in the state. Let's say somebody hit us. She has to go after that person in that state to get the medical covered. So that's kind of one of those things like, okay, I don't know how well that's going to work. We're just going to have to find out and see what happens. Well, what if a person gets hit by a pedestrian? Well, the MACP works. Unless they're out of the state of Michigan. If they're not a resident of Michigan, then they're just going to have to go after your insurance. That's where your bodily injury comes in. That's why most people should or will have the $250,000 per person $500,000 per accident to give them the most coverage that they can get. Some of the responses that are amazing from these companies is that I've seen companies raise the limits. So now you might even be able to do $500,000 and $1 million, which is kind of a good response for those of us that have a lot of assets to protect. Anyways, guys, I hope this isn't too much information. I do want to go over a couple more things before I let you go. One note, if you guys are interested in getting a quote, I'll put a link there below. That's not the point of this video, but it's there if you want it. That's an option. I work with a company that works with multiple companies. So if you're looking for multiple quotes, if you've got insurance today, that's even better, because today it matters and they can get you a discount today, and they can update your medical when July 2nd hits. That's when those changes are going to take effect. But also, they actually work with one of those companies. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it yet, so because it's so new and there's a lot of like internal stuff that I've been trained on and kind of researched through links from these companies. So I don't know if I'm allowed to say the company yet that is going to offer significant others. So there is a company that I actually have talked to, and they're going to allow any significant other to be considered spouse. So if you're boyfriend and girlfriend, they are going to let you put the PIP together and have them as one instead of having to go to the state and being separate. So I will, the second I'm allowed and I find out I can put that out there, I'll let you guys know that. Otherwise, I am going to kind of tell you how we're handling everything. So here's the recommendations. Right now, it's so new, the default answer is don't change anything yet. Unless you're in that situation where you have that qualifying medical, you have it, and it's a good fit, then great. It's not for everybody. It's just who's the best fit for which situation. So personally, I'm going to leave it as unlimited for now. You may want to look at possibly getting an umbrella if you have assets to protect. If you don't already have one, look at what you can lose. We're looking at, do you have a second home? Do you have really nice cars? Do you have a really good income? Because you can get docked your income if you get sued for any reason. So do you have that stuff you need to protect in the situation where if you are at fault and the person doesn't have the right medical and they come after you, or they come after your deductible, or whatever it is, so you want to make sure that you're covered correctly in that situation. Most commonly, an umbrella is the cheapest thing you can buy in insurance. That'll give you the most coverage. That's going to be beneficial. Other than that, subscribe if you want more updates, because I will try to keep you informed as best I can. I may do reviews on companies if you're curious on what their stance are. If they've released it, I will review it and let you know what I find. Otherwise, thumbs up, share this with everybody in Michigan, because everybody needs to know this. Otherwise, there is one last thing that I just keep getting these things pop in my head. So one of the laws, or one of the things that's going to change also, is kind of a seventh thing, is if you do lower than, if your bodily injury is lower than 250, 500, that's 250,000 a person, 500,000 an accident, every renewal you have to sign that you're opting to choose those lower coverages. If 2 years from now, next year, this year, you don't sign that you're accepting those coverages, then the state is requiring the insurance company to raise your limits to the 250, 500. So if you are the person that doesn't see the value in having that coverage, then just know every time you renew 6 months or a year, you're going to have to re-sign that option. This is going to be in effect for 8 years. So this whole new law isn't going to change for a long time. Anyways, guys, I hope you liked it. Share it with everybody. Everybody in Michigan should be watching this. They need to know this stuff because it's very important. Subscribe if you want to follow me. Thumbs up if you liked it. Questions, leave them in the comments below. I'm going to answer as many as I can. I will see you guys in the next one.